All right. End of a long day. We're going to bring it home, and hopefully this will, as it says up there, provide a little bit of a call to action about the so what of all of this. One of the things I do whenever I'm going to new office, new job, new gig, whatever, new thing, new people, new something, I always tell my folks, I'm like, the first thing I do is I take a marker in the upper right-hand corner and I write 2 questions. The first question is why, and the second is so what. And I've sort of trained myself to look at that after every conversation that I have in whatever office that is or whatever's going on there, because you have to say, okay, do I really understand why I just had the discussion that I did, and do I know why it matters? I've been doing that for probably 20 years, and it helps level set. So what I thought I'd do here at the end of today is take all the really great discussions that we've had and the informative questions that we've got, questions and answers that we've seen and everything else, and kind of wrap it up into, all right, so how does this come together in the real world? And I worked with our team. We've got a couple of our awesome execution team up here in the front who are going to tell me where I screwed this up. But the idea here is to put all of this stuff into context and say, what does it look like when you take these guidelines, when you take this framework and you try to actually do it for something that's for real? So this call to action is focused on an initiative that is of singular importance to one of our speakers earlier today, Mr. Schwartz from Fleet Forces has talked about we got to get things out to the fleet. We've got to get things into the hands of sailors. In 2021, the joint N6s of Fleet Forces and Pac Fleet put out a memo that said mobility is a fleet requirement. So people kept saying, oh, well, a mobile device, it's not a fleet requirement. And they wrote a memo and they said, yes, it is. Okay, got it. It's a fleet requirement. This was 2021. And all the programs said, got it, mobility is a fleet requirement. And they all said, great, we're going to give mobile devices. And they started doing that work. And what do you think happened? Everybody gave a sailor a mobile device. Not one, but like 10. Okay? So all great stuff, but that highlights the, whoops, okay, we told programs go do this, and they said, roger that, go do that, and they all did it. And then it all had to get landed at the sailor. That's not good. So in 2023, Admiral Caudill wrote an email to Admiral Thomas and to N6 and said, hey, I need your help, Carl. We need to have a strategy here because this is not a good idea. Like I need your help to try to bring all this together so that we can have one device for our sailors and then just put all the apps on that, right? So please help me by figuring out who's going to run all that. And of course, we were very interested in that at the down CI level and said, all right, yeah, we should probably help there. That's kind of our job. So just this, actually about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, after, and of course the dates on here don't please me because the one says 2023 and the other one says 2025, and that's way too freaking slow. But we're there, right? We have a joint signed memo by ASN RDA and the Don CIO that says PEO Digital is going to go make this happen. And it says going to go make this happen. What I'm going to talk about now is that we're ready to go now. Like all of the work necessary to make this a reality has been done. To make it a reality. What the hard part comes now, which is scaling it and actually putting it out in the hands of sailors so that it is scalable. But that's the background. Well, how does this relate to ISV 2.0, all right? This is squarely 2 of our pillars right off the bat. And I would argue it probably supports the third in a lot of different ways with the applications. But for this initiative, Unified Endpoints, right, it's about simplifying the user experience. I kind of made that point already. Enhancing efficiency, right? If I only have to manage one thing instead of 10 things, well, yeah, that's better. Okay. Costs go down, right? Less things, less cost. Minimizing dependency and interoperability, right? Because we're forcing the programs to now talk to each other and say, oh, I have to put my app on this architecture, on this endpoint, on this type of thing. Got it. So now my decision space, instead of 50 things, has gone down to 10. makes their job easier. Okay, I don't have to make such crazy choices. But at the same time, now they realize, wait, if I use that thing over here that my partner in this other program did, I don't have to do that, right? So we'll start to see efficiency. We've already started to see that happen, by the way, as we've come through with this memo. But in the end, optimizing means efficiency, but it just also simplifies things for the end user. The security part can't be underestimated, though. By unifying the endpoints, now we're controlling them from a common plane. Now our operators, instead of having to wonder, okay, what's on that device over there, and what's that one, and what is that? Okay, now we can see it all. It's on a common backbone, it's on a common management plane, and they can actually see what's happening in all those places. If some 0-day comes out, they can fix it right away, right? So we're reducing the attack surface, we're increasing our visibility, and reducing overall risk. So great, we've hit 2 of the pillars already. But what's the real outcome here? Seamless operations, users focus on the mission and stop worrying about what widget I'm using, right? Going back to what Mr. Schwartz said earlier, it's just got to work, right? That's kind of our big tagline right now, is it just works. That's the goal. All right, so the foundation of this, I said we were already ready to do this, right? There's a lot of folks in the room that contributed to the things that are on the screen right now. Some of them you've heard of, some of them you haven't. But in the end, all of these little components in and of themselves were delivered for some other reason, right? Nautilus Virtual Desktop was kind of first out of the gate, and it solved a problem for us where we needed to have a rapidly scaling platform to let people use their desktop from any device, right? The first communities we served were like reservists and others that didn't have their own government machines, but hey, then our VPN went away, and oh boy, that came in really handy, right? So we could scale it quick, and we got a win out of that. Nautilus endpoints, everybody's kind of heard about this. We talked about it at East last year. It's now getting ready to scale up pretty hard, but the key here is it works anywhere, right? It's patched on the fly. It's zero trust by design, all that goodness and all that stuff, right? And it changes the paradigm, right? No longer are you worried about, oh, I got to re-image my machine and all this, whatever. Again, simplifying things for users, but giving the operational community the visibility they need. But the key here is, in terms of this use case that I'm talking about, now we have managed endpoints, virtual and physical, right? So I can use that same concept anywhere, and we'll talk about how we do that, right? Infrastructure. We started solving problems in the infrastructure world because we knew that all the aging stuff, all the on-premise stuff wasn't going to last. We needed a new paradigm. We wanted to go cloud to edge. So we started building out the same hyperscale architecture that's used in the cloud out on the edge and testing that in various locations. And somebody said, hey, shouldn't we put one of these on a ship? Maybe that would work. And somebody, oh, no, you can't get the cloud on a ship. And then this cool thing called Sting comes along, and catnip, and all these whatever acronyms we came up with, these fun names we invent. But bottom line, all of a sudden that blocker of bandwidth, it's not a blocker anymore. Well, maybe what can we do with that, right? So you see how it's building on each other. Mobile device management. Well, we've been talking about, the flank speed phone since 2021, and it was a bit of a culture shift to how we did business back in the day. But what it helped us learn through was how to truly manage a device wherever it was, a mobile device. And now we've extended that out, and we can do that on people's personal devices, just the applications. We've got approval from DoD CIO to move forward with this. It's a full exception to policy. We talked about policy stuff earlier, but the point here is now we've taken, it's not just a laptop or a virtual desktop. Now we're talking mobile devices. We're starting to get closer to what they asked for, right? We've got managed devices or applications running on your own phone. It's very important in this particular use case. But all of these things are starting to layer one on top of each other. There's solutions for other things, but when you look at the shipboard use case and you look at unified endpoints, you start to see them all come together, and all these individual solutions integrate through, and you get a result like that. Flank speed edge is what we call the thing we're putting on ships, and now we're talking about unifying the endpoint and the delivery on those ships. Last July at June, sorry. Done IT East. I stood up on the stage, and we were talking to then Commander, now Captain Kevin White, on the USS Abraham Lincoln, over Teams, over hotel Wi-Fi, while underway in the middle of the Pacific. And that was enabled through all of those things we had on that first slide, all put together into an architecture. And that's kind of a wonky, nerdy diagram there about how it's all put together. But basically putting all that stuff in place, so you had a control plane, you had hosting and compute, you had management services, you had the applications running both local and in the cloud, and it was all working underway on a big deck. And we've taken it even further from there, and the team said, hey, maybe we could host applications on this thing. And NSIPs, UMA, now COMAS, some of our key, really hard things to keep up to date while we're underway. Wouldn't it be, let's see if we can actually, let's deploy that, and let's see how fast it takes over the wire. How fast do you think we were able to install and update NSIPs underway? Dan, how long did that take? About an hour. How long do you think it takes when they actually put a team on board with CDs? You got to fly there. You got to a lot longer.
2 weeks for the on-prem
Yeah.
install, and then a lot more before that.
Yeah. So orders and orders of magnitude faster. And those are just a few that we experimented with. Now the team is looking at it and going, all right, if it works for these, and these were hard, let's figure out how we do it with some of the other ones, some of the more important ones. Let's determine whether or not this technology can support that. So the point I'm trying to drive home here is we keep talking in big, high, hand-wavy strategic language in these conferences, but you have to apply that to the real world. The call to action that we got from Mr. Schwartz, from General Worth, from Admiral Ruttenberg is the fleet needs this. They need this now, and they need it fast, and it better work. So that works once. Now we have to figure out, how do we do this at scale? How do we do this at all of those locations? And more importantly, how do we make sure that the sailors on that ship know how to run it? That they understand how they're linked together with the global fabric so that they can interact back and forth with the folks at NetWarcom, with the folks at NCTS Far East, with the folks in Bahrain and Naples and everywhere else. Great questions from our operators in the back. How do we train those operational forces at the NOC? How do we train them at NetWarcom? How do we train them at NCDoc? How to use these tools and run it at speed, right? Because we came up with a lot of these good things, but I'll tell you, the host the applications and could this work, that was a suggestion from the sailors on the ship. Because they were like, this is a pain in the butt. Could this do that? Sure, let's try it, right? So we're getting good ideas from those sailors. We need to empower them. We need to get them moving faster. But the idea behind this last presentation, and this is my last slide, it's pretty compact, is just to try to land it home with, we've talked a lot about strategy today. We've talked a lot about how folks in the Pentagon and folks at our level are thinking about how best to solve the problem for the warfighter. What we're challenging everyone here to do is to take all of that framework, all of that strategy, and all of that goodness, right? I talked at the beginning about design principles, right? Those are your design principles. Use them as you're moving forward. Ask good, hard questions like we've heard today. Think about how your solutions can help empower that sailor in the field. Think about how when you're delivering your program, you're making sure that that sailor on the ship, that sailor in the NOC, that sailor who has to do the work will get to do that work. How you can save them time, how you can help them focus on the mission and not on, hey, I can't log in today. Right? That's the challenge that we present to ourselves every day in our shop. I mentioned earlier, I'm an operator. I think of them in an operator's mindset. I think the entire CIO team thinks of themselves in terms of an operator's mindset. And so our commitment to you is to continue driving forward on that and making sure that we go from strategy to action and with results and outcomes. So we're asking you to go on this journey with us. I hope you will. And I will stand by for any questions on that. This is, I did that a little bit shorter than I expected. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them. Otherwise, it's been a long day, and I'm sure everybody would love to go wind down. So, any questions? All right. Thank you all for your attention today. Have a great night.